Going into Gaza for the first time and seeing it made me sick to my stomach, a pit in my stomach that I just felt was it was so hard to even grasp what I was seeing with my own eyes. Entire cities, all of Rafah, the entire city of Rafah is gone. And I mean gone in that there's nothing that stands. There's nothing that remains. Central Gaza, gone. Mawasi, gone. Look at the images coming out now of the displaced Palestinians that are being moved along the coastal corridor. And you see these photos and you see in the background just everything is gone. And in the far back, you can see the towers from Tel Aviv rising over the city skyline. That's how much we've leveled that city to the point now you see nothing until Tel Aviv. That's insane.
Welcome back to Legitimate Targets, everybody. I hope you're all having a good day. I have a very special guest joining us on today's episode. And I wanted to speak with him for some time since I first saw the podcast appearance that he did on Tucker Carlson's show, which I think really woke a lot of people up, especially on the traditional right wing in America. Hopefully, the older people in our country about what is going on in Gaza right now. And I think it's really important because we've had on different veterans to speak about Gaza recently. But Anthony Aguilar is special, not just because he was in Gaza, but because his history and his record in the military that precedes him, which I want to share with you right now. You were in the U.S. military for 25 years. You were a lieutenant colonel, now retired. You served on 12 different deployments in Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, Jordan, Philippines, Malaysia, Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam. Crazy. You've been all across the world. You received the Bronze Star for Valor in Combat. You received the Purple Heart after being wounded in combat. Army Commendation Medal for Valor in Combat, and you've recently now emerged as a whistleblower after actually spending time in Gaza, something I haven't spoken to any Americans that have been to Gaza since the start of the genocide. And you were there from May until June of this year, working at sites run by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. So thank you so much for joining me. It's a great honor. I want to first start off by asking you about, Tucker Carlson in his podcast with you. He said that you were going to be attacked after coming on. Have you been surprised by the level of attacks that have been thrust against you, and how far are they going? Are they trying to come after your own personal record now? Are they coming after your loved ones? What are they trying to do to you?
So there have been various threats, death threats, online threats. Obviously, the attacking of my character and or the attempts to attack my character, and I knew that in speaking out and coming forward on the record that I would be the target of all of those various types of type attempts to discredit or what have you. And to me, it wasn't really a question of whether or not that I should speak out or not. I feel that from a moral obligation, from an ethical and moral standpoint, that I didn't really have a choice but to speak out against what I witnessed and about what I saw and what the United States is directly complicit in going on in Gaza with Israel. And I felt that the threats and everything that would come would be were just would be part of the challenge. And it really hasn't impacted me I mean, it has impacted me directly, but it hasn't really influenced me in terms of whether I should continue to speak out or not. My service record stands for itself. Anyone can try to discredit it. They will get nowhere with that. My family is a strong supportive unit, and nothing has changed that. And for the people that know the truth, that have known the truth and are now hearing the truth from another source, have been very supportive. And I think that the truth is becoming more and more clear to the world day by day in Gaza, and really the the threats and the malintent and the attempts to discredit doesn't hinder me.
Hmm. It's very good that that's the case, because I've seen you going out. I've seen you now get arrested. I believe it was at a Senate hearing with Josephine Gilbo. Um, I want to ask you though. There's been a bunch of propaganda tours recently with influencers, journalists. Mike Huckabee, obviously the U.S. ambassador to Israel, participating in some of these, and they're visiting these sites after you came out and you blew the whistle on what was really going on there. What are they showing the public, and what are they hiding?
So one of the key things that they're that they're hiding, and it's hiding in plain sight, is that the distribution sites that are in Gaza are all located, intentionally located, in the furthest part of the southern edge of Gaza. So if you think of the times during the United Nations when UNRWA and other non-government organizations, NGOs, were in Gaza, they were providing direct food distribution in the form of meals and direct care from 400 different sites throughout Gaza. When the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation took over and went in, they only they only established 4 sites, and out of those 4 sites, one of them, the one in central Gaza near the Netzarim corridor, is now closed down because of the operations being conducted into Gaza City. And the 3 in the south have now been consolidated into one large humanitarian assistance village encampment, a concentration camp, for lack of better terms, with only 2 sites operating. So 400 sites versus 2 sites operating. And those sites have been established in areas that forcefully displace the population in its entirety from the north, central, all the way to the south, with the dilemma that it puts the Palestinians in, to where do you want to die of starvation, or do you want to, you know, pack up your belongings, pick up your livelihood, and come south to get food or the promise of food and never return home. So these distribution sites serve as forced internal displacement mechanisms, but also what they don't show or what they don't talk about is the food itself. We're not providing them any water. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation mechanism does not provide any water to the Palestinians because it wasn't in the contract that the GHF has with the Israeli government. No water. The food that's provided aren't meals. They're not providing a warm meal or even a completed meal. They're providing dried food, parceled goods, rice, beans, pasta, with no water to cook or prepare these foods. And the food that they're providing is very limited, in that if you were to take the number of meals that they proclaim to have provided thus far, somewhere in over 100 million plus meals that they claim, if you break that down by actual per people per day, per how many days if they've been distributing food, if you were to break that out, that's only one meal every 2 days. And the meals themselves are a very low caloric intake value, to where systematically, by design, you are starving the population. Those are the things that they don't show. The other parts that they attempt to not show but still show because you just can't hide it, is the IDF around these sites shooting at the civilian population. On Mike Huckabee and Envoy Witkoff's visit, there was shooting outside of the sites. These influencers that they bring to do these on-site type of shorts, are there's shooting around the sites. It's you can't even hide the truth. But the truth that they're trying to hide is leading to the continuation and the starvation and the displacement, and moving, basically, the United States through the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is acting as an agent of the Israeli government. We are doing their dirty work for them against the civilian population. And that's what these folks don't show you. And I would say, when you think about the rhetoric coming out of the mouth of Mike Huckabee, who says that there's no starvation, Well, our own president said that there's starvation. Others have said that the United Nations has declared a famine in northern Gaza. The United Nations has declared that there is a genocide. So, who do you want to take the word from? The world or Mike Huckabee, who's a Christian Zionist and believes in the that this greater plan for Israel? I don't believe him.
Mm-hmm. I'll play devil's advocate here, and it's probably the most applicable use of that term that I could ever imagine. It really is devil's advocate, but people will say, well, look at what, look at any war in human history. Does one belligerent offer food aid to the civilians of the enemy combatants' country? That never happens. They seemingly justify what Israel is doing here with the caloric deficit that they're imposing upon the people of Gaza. Uh, and they compare it to what the Nazis did in Leningrad or something like that. But they say, that's fine. No one does that. What would your response be to Zionists who say this?
So anyone within the Zionist architecture, the Zionist regime, or even in the United States military that are siding with this that's just the way war is concept. I would invite them any day, anytime, pack a lunch, and let's have a talk. Because I've been deployed 12 times and have fought in 4 different wars: Raqqa, Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq, all the places that you mentioned that I have fought war. And never have I witnessed or experienced the level of depravity, dehumanization, and destruction as what I've witnessed in Gaza at the hands of the Israeli Defense Forces. Now, to say that they're providing food for their enemy, well, the entire population of Gaza, all Palestinians are not the enemy. Wars are fought in a very precise, calculated way to where we are beholden, we are obligated to protect and safeguard the civilian population. That is a hallmark of international humanitarian law and the Geneva Convention and the Geneva Convention protocols, of which Israel is signatory to. To label the entire society as the enemy is unethical and immoral. And I'll give you an example of how moral nations, in terms of their engagement, on the 23rd of March 2019, the ISIS caliphate, the last bastion of the ISIS physical caliphate in Syria, fell, and ISIS surrendered. Thousands of ISIS fighters surrendered. ISIS, I would think that most can agree, was a horrific, violent, terrible organization, and the things that they did: beheadings on TV, violent incidents. When they surrendered in Baghuz Haqqani on the 23rd of March, we didn't shoot them or starve them or line them up to be blown up or march them into danger. We fed them, we gave them water, we treated their medical needs, and then we guaranteed safe passage to the place where they would be held, because that is what the Geneva Convention requires. Non-combatants, even if once were a combatant that are no longer a combatant, or non-combatants in terms of civilians, the civilian population should not be targeted or withheld from food or water or services for survival. To say that that's how war is, and that Israel is this moral actor in this situation, is categorically false.
Mm-hmm. You've talked about how the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is working in coordination with the U.S. plan for this Gaza Riviera. You just mentioned that, it's facilitating the forced displacement of Palestinians in Gaza. But can you further elaborate on exactly what this plan is and how this is all working together and the pieces are coming together?
So the plan for the what is considered to be the day after plan, you've heard Netanyahu and various members of the Israeli government talk about the day after. Well, the United States is directly intertwined in that day after plan with what what the Gaza Strip will be once all Palestinians are removed and displaced, either dead or moved somewhere else and banned from their land. And that plan, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is is in step with the execution of that plan in terms of aligning to the military operations that are ongoing in Gaza with the IDF or with the Israeli government. Operation Gideon's Chariots commenced in April timeframe and went through May, June, July. And that operation was designed to clear the central part of Gaza and displace all of the civilians from the encampments, from the UN encampments, and from any remaining homes and neighborhoods, destroy everything and move them all to the south. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, in establishing their secure distribution sites in the south to receive those people coming, was directly in line with the timeline for Israel executing Gideon's Chariots. Now, Gideon's Chariots 2, which is the continuation of the clearing offensive in the north, which is happening now. When you see on the news with surrounding Gaza City with tanks and the continued bombing and the assault into Gaza City, that is Operation Gideon's Chariots 2. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation's operation in the distribution sites, their phase 3, building out this humanitarian village is what they're calling it in the south, to receive all displaced persons to the south and contain them, is in line with the timeline in coordination with the execution of Operation Gideon's Chariots. Furthermore, the Boston Consulting Group had a rendering of what this day after plan would look like of the Gaza Riviera, a resorts, technical park, super highway, super train, rail train, like this modern city. That concept, that rendering, was printed in a 24 by 36 poster size that was in the operations center for the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation in Kerem Shalom at the border. So this vision of this day after real estate mogul bonanza, as I believe the Israeli minister of defense or minister of interior, one of the two, had mentioned this just a couple days ago, that this it will be a real estate bonanza and that the US will make a lot of money. So you're taking this concept of what this will look like. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is not a humanitarian foundation. They don't have the backbone. They don't have the capacity. They don't have the experience. They don't have the ability to conduct humanitarian assistance at scale. They simply do not have the infrastructure. What they are, what the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is a land grabbing entity, meaning the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation goes in, they're the only ones there, and all the land that they've claimed, that Gaza Humanitarian Foundation has taken a claim to, that this is ours and we're not giving it up, is all of the area of the south where the city of Rafah once stood. The city of Rafah is now leveled to the ground. That land is the most lucrative piece of real estate to own in that, not just in what's when once the Gaza Strip, but in that area because of the oil and mineral reserves, and then also where you can build these resorts that they want to build. It is disgusting that the United States is complicit with a plan to eradicate, to eliminate, to kill and or displace an entire population of people under the auspice of building a resort city. It's disgusting.
You know, I don't even have words for it. It's insane that this is all being done under the auspices of humanitarian aid. It's insane that it's happening at all. What one would assume that in these humanitarian camps, as they call them, the concentration camps, you'd have IDF personnel who would be the cream of the crop of the IDF, most experienced, most respectful, best at dealing with these tense situations. If you are dealing with people who are literally starving to death, what was your experience like interacting with these IDF personnel? And would you say that they are, well trained? Are they fit for the cause of being inside of Gaza and doing this combat operation within an urban area? Or are these just random people that they've thrown into these uniforms and they're letting them go crazy and shoot whoever they want?
Well, in filling the ranks, if you will, of what's going on in Gaza, but then also having to fill the ranks for forces to continue the push in the West Bank. Let's not forget about that, and the other operations ongoing. The forces in Gaza are reservists of the IDF, conscripts. They recently called up 60,000 more Israeli conscripts to the point to where they're even mandating Orthodox Jews to join the ranks of the IDF and fight in Gaza. They are not well trained. They are not professional soldiers. They don't train as, in their, it's not their profession. And they're put in a very precarious, complex, complicated environment where professional militaries would even have a challenge in terms of navigating this landscape of the population and the conflict and an enemy that's seemingly everywhere and nowhere all at the same time. And ask me how I know, because I fought that enemy very similar to that in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria for a quarter century. The last quarter century of war that the United States has been involved in, I have fought in. So I know exactly what it takes, and it takes discipline and professional soldiers and strong leadership, which the Israeli Defense Forces in Gaza do not have. They are not the most moral army. They are the least moral army that I have ever witnessed, that I've ever worked with. And to couple that, to pair that up with this combination of actors, if you will, in Gaza in this operation, you have the Israeli Defense Forces that are conducting offensive combat operations, simultaneously conducting back clearing operations, simultaneously conducting internal security operations to secure themselves, simultaneously conducting these humanitarian like operations to displace the population, none of which those things that they're doing very well. Just look at the what's going on in Gaza City. You can read these, and it's an open source reporting. You can read about it. What the IDF are doing now into Gaza is bombing campaign, bombing, 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 and then as they go in on the ground, they have these decommissioned M113 troop carriers, basically an armored troop carrier that we, the United States, gave them, that they remote control now, and they just load them with explosives and drive these things in the middle of neighborhoods and just level everything before they come in. That's not fighting a war. That's annihilation. That's what they're doing. They don't have the discipline and the training and the leadership to fight this type of war, and they know that. So they've reverted to what they can do, and that's kill everything and everyone and convince the world that they're justified in doing it. Add to that the ingredient of the UG Solutions contractors, the company I worked for, armed security in Gaza, working hand in hand as the IDF displaced people. You have Americans that are there receiving them into these concentration camps. The guy in charge, the guy that GHF put in charge of this Gaza Humanitarian Foundation security apparatus, was the national president of the Infidels Motorcycle Club and hired members of the Infidels Motorcycle Club to be leadership at each of these sites. The Infidels Motorcycle Club, their charter as an organization is to fight jihad and the elimination of all Muslims from the world. So you have an organization run by Zionists paired with an organization that believe that all Muslims should die together in charge of humanitarian aid. That's abhorrent. That is ridiculous.
What percent of your colleagues, when you were working there, were looking around as this was taking place and just couldn't believe it, versus how many were of that sort of mindset, the infidel motorbike club? I didn't even know that existed. It's insane.
I didn't know it existed either until when I got there, and a lot of the contractors all had the same Crusader tattoo, and all. I was like, did I miss the memo? Was there like a tattoo stop along when we in processed? I didn't go to the tattoo stop. Like, how does everybody have the same tattoo? And they were all recruited from this Infidels Motorcycle Club, and I was like, what's that? That doesn't sound humanitarian. Okay, so yeah, I didn't know either. I'm discovery learning, but the I would say out of the UG Solutions contractors, you had a group. Out of that 350 contractors, you had a large group of them that were directly recruited from the Infidels Motorcycle Club. It's a national organization, so they had lots to recruit from. You have some that I believe that were there that didn't really understand what the situation was overall in terms of Israel, Gaza, what the history is, what the situation was, that were there simply for the paycheck. And that's, in the independent contractor world, there are individuals that they just sign up on a contract and they say, hey, I'm going to go and make. I mean, it's lucrative. The money is. I mean, they were paying us over, like for me, example, over $1,600 a day per day. If you go there on a 90-day or a 180-day, you're bringing home half a mil in half a year's work just pulling security. So you have some that are there that's just about the paycheck, look the other way, don't acknowledge the bad, take the pot money and make a living. And then you had some there that were um, that did recognize, like, hey, this is not right. I was not the first one to resign. I resigned on June 13th, but before me, there were many people that had resigned days into this because they were like, this is not. I mean, Jake Wood, who was the director of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation in the beginning, the guy in charge of the whole thing. It's now Johnny Moore. It was a gentleman named Jake Wood. On the 26th of May, when we were starting operations, when this whole thing was kicking off, the cut the ribbon ceremony type of thing, Jake Wood quit, stepped down as the director of GHF, citing that this operation could not be conducted in compliance with humanitarian principles, and there were too many concerning aspects of this for him to stay at the helm, and he stepped down. So the people have seen behind the curtain, and it is ugly. And I saw behind the curtain within the first few days, and I felt that okay, is this incompetence that we can fix, or is this deliberate? And the conclusion that I drew from witnessing it and being a part of it, and from being involved in the operations and the planning and the execution, and seeing the IDF's plans and the IDF's involvement and the overall vision, is that this is not incompetence. This is deliberate. The plan and how it's being executed in Gaza is being executed to the T with success, based on the plan that the Israeli government had, or the IDF had, to enact a genocide. It's a perfectly executed genocide.
I have one last question for you. And again, I mentioned you're I think one of the only Americans that's been in Gaza in the past few years that has been able to see so much and speak so freely about what they saw. Um, and also, you've been in some of the most gruesome wars in modern history. Syria, of course, Afghanistan. Correct me if I'm wrong. Were you involved in the Battle of Sadr City as well? Did I hear that?
I was an infantry platoon leader. I was actually in the first ground infantry company that went into Sadr City, in during the invasion of Sadr City. So yes, I was in Sadr City through the duration of that clearing offensive operation.
So you've seen it all. What can you tell us about what you were able to witness in your, albeit somewhat brief time, but the level of sheer destruction? Because I think we've become numb to these photos. What could you actually tell us about what you saw and the human suffering and just the catastrophic leveling of Gaza?
Again, it is a comparative element that I have nothing to compare it to in terms of its destructiveness and just depravity and dehumanization. And in Raqqa, for example, when ISIS was falling back through Raqqa and the Syrian Democratic Forces and American forces were pushing them through Raqqa. They destroyed everything on the way, a scorched the earth type of mindset. Any civilians that didn't go with them as hostages or go with them willingly were killed and left in the streets dead, hung from rafters as an example to everyone else. Like, don't don't turn your back on ISIS. So when you're going through a city and it's been leveled and destroyed and it's rubble and there's just dead bodies in the streets and human beings, children and women hanging from light poles and rafters in the streets, and you see that and you think there's nothing worse. This is the worst. Well, going into Gaza blew that out of the water. The bodies left in the rubble, the death count of being 65 to 165,000, whatever they're saying daily, the IDF have already come out and acknowledged that that death toll is much higher. And I knew that from the first day I went into Gaza, looking at the sheer destruction and the rubble and the indiscriminate bombing of hospitals, schools, mosques, playgrounds, community centers, apartment complexes leveled to the ground. People don't get out of that in time. People are left there, and when those buildings collapse and are turned to rubble, there's dead Palestinians left in the rubble, where wild packs of dogs roam the area and eating on human flesh, and bodies that are left dead in the rubble, and parents, Palestinian men and women, mothers and fathers, carrying their dead, starving children. That's real. That's not Hamas propaganda. That's not coming from the Gaza Humanitarian or Health Ministry. That's not coming from some, if we want to say that the UN isn't credible, or that doctors, UN workers aren't credible, which I think they are. But if you don't think that they're credible, that's coming from me, who has seen it, who was there. The smell of death that just fills the area in Gaza is something that will never escape me. It's the scale of death and destruction, particularly against the civilian population, is something that the world hasn't seen since the height and the worst fighting of World War II. And now it's happening in front of our eyes on 4K HD television. And soon, when operations in the north are complete, and we see the entire city of Gaza has been leveled, every inch of it, and every Palestinian that once lived there is gone. The world is going to look back on this and say, we always knew this was wrong. This is horrible. Never again. Never again. And to the world, wake up, because never again, we've said that already. And here we are doing it again. The level of destruction and annihilation, the only way I could describe it is a post-apocalyptic dystopian wasteland. That is what I saw and what I experienced in Gaza, and nothing compares to what I witnessed in my time there.
Anthony Aguilar, thank you so much for joining us today. It's very dangerous to do what you're doing, you know that, and I don't envy the position you're in, but of course, it's the highest badge of honor you could have, is to be attacked by these people who are they're the ones who should be attacked right now by all these institutions of power. So thank you so much for sticking your neck out and for giving us a honest perspective into what is really going on here, because no one else will. Is there anywhere you'd like to shout out to our audience, to ways they can get involved, or they can follow for more of your actions and analysis moving forward?
To everyone listening, stay informed. The power of the people is only taken when the people give that power away. And I'll tell you right now, just look. What's going on in Gaza, the world condemns. We as Americans should condemn this. Our lawmakers won't condemn it because they're compromised. Many of them are compromised by AIPAC. Furthermore, your voice matters. Right now, this week and next week is the UN General Assembly. make your voices heard. Various ways to protest or to petition the government, write letters, make your voice heard, make your opinion on social media platforms, and don't stay silent in this, because to the world and to Americans and to anyone listening, mark my words, soon, one day, and I don't mean years from now, I mean in a matter of weeks and months, the world will stand back in disgust of what happened. And we can't say we didn't know. So the only thing we have to ask ourselves is, what did we do? And no one person can do everything. There is no magic spell or a magic bullet that makes it all go away. It's going to take everybody, the voice, standing up and saying, we won't tolerate this. We will not allow this. This must end. Everybody's voice matters. So if you think that your voice on it, or that you're just a bystander, you're not. No one in the world is a bystander anymore. We're all complicit if we allow this to continue.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Anthony, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time, and I really do appreciate you sharing your platform. Thank you so much.